welcome back to another episode of the Good Trouble Podcast. My name is Gregory Ball. I am your host here, and today I have a good friend of mine who I've known for quite. I feel like, see, people are gonna start thinking this is just a reason for me to kick it with my friends, because like literally all the people that we've had so far, I've definitely had a relationship with. But today I'm here with somebody who I've watched transform himself and move into different spaces, and has been successful in all of them. This is a successful event curator. He has actually been a person who I feel like has supplied culture to the city for more than a decade, almost 20-something years. And now he's moved into a brand new space where he is the proprietor of his own restaurant and space called Hugh. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Good Trouble, Robert Eugene.
Thank you so much.
How are you? I'm sorry, I used the full name.
Nah, it's all right. It's all right. You'd be surprised at how many people don't know my full name.
Yeah, all they know is Rob, right? That's
or
it.
I am Boston.
Yeah, that's it. That's right. He's also the man behind the Instagram account I am Boston. So if you really kind of want to have a beautiful snapshot of the fullness of the fun that can be had in the city, this is the man to follow. And I was talking about how you have transformed over your life and kind of the things that you've been doing that people should know. Many people out there that are watching us, you've been the person that provided a good time for, I would say, if you're under 40, if you're under the age of 40 and above the age of 21, Rob has been responsible for curating a good time for you in some way, shape, or form as an event promoter.
Absolutely.
Tell us about where you got your start in that, because I know that's been something that's where a lot of people's first interaction with you is.
Yeah, it's funny. When I was younger, I grew up in Dorchester.
Mm-hmm. See, the fine citizen of the best section of the city. Go ahead.
I actually was involved in throwing a few house parties. It came up in conversation not too long ago, and it was like, actually, yeah, we did do that. I know Kareem Lider. Mm-hmm. We grew up in the same neighborhood, so we had a couple of those basement bashes at his house.
Okay.
But my real start to nightlife and promoting was in college. I went to BU for undergrad, and my freshman year, I attended this party, and it was like the United Nations of parties. I mean, when I tell you all different types of people from all over the world, it was incredible to see. Growing up in Dorchester, you may see, a few different cultures, but it was nothing like this. Mm-hmm. And then, I got to meet the organizers of the event, and it was a promotional company called La Familia. Okay. And I was like, listen, I got to get down. Like, I'm from Boston. I could bring a whole different crowd of people who actually are from the city and live in Boston. And, they were like, let's do it. And that's basically how I got my start.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what was it about kind of getting people together? Because you talked for a little bit just now about how that would impact you because it was such a diverse group of people and folks. What was it about kind of that celebration and connecting people that was really important to you?
I don't know where it stemmed from, but I really do enjoy bringing people together. It's one of those things where I've always felt that Boston has been very... it's a diverse city, but it's always been like segregated, especially when the party scene, when I was coming up, it was like,
absolutely,
this is a night for Black people. This is a night for Hispanic or Latin nights. This is, this place only has like, it might be our music, but it's all white people. Mm-hmm. And
it was almost like the equivalent of New York, the Bridge and Tunnel crowd was like on Friday, Saturday. And then,
right.
Black people got Thursday.
Yeah.
And Latin folks might have got might have got Saturday, depending on where it's at, or Sunday, and then gay night was Sunday night too.
Yeah, it was. So I was always more intentional about I enjoyed the inclusivity. I think that Boston still has the potential. It's gotten a lot better. You go into rooms now and you see a little bit of everything. It's not perfect, but it's moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and I know that, you talked about the kind of the change in nightlife, and I remember the era when we was all dressed in business casual to go outside.
You had to literally wear hard-bottom shoes and a button-up shirt to go out.
Which is, to me, in retrospect, was just insane. We should have all just stayed home. Because, I believe what was beautiful, though, is that then there was an era of like what Real P did with Over Easy, what they were doing, what the collective was doing out at the Middlesex, where it was like they were actually pushing back against that idea, and they were like, okay.
Right.
We made, and they also changed the energy around, like before it was like the every week, so it was almost like the whole idea of getting cattle of people in and out,
Right.
and just that vibe where they went to a curated event,
Right.
You know, and I
It's
know
more like a one-off type of
exactly, or once a month, so it was something that you look forward to. Did you notice? Did you see that kind of change coming? And you know, I know you were doing the weekly, but you also started to get into the monthly thing as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one-offs, part of it started because of need, right? Like, we didn't have access to do weekly nights in a lot of spaces. We just weren't given those opportunities. And so we took the odd days or the one time, like a long weekend, Sunday night, or like a Sunday day party. I mean, Over Easy was probably the first day party in Boston. And yeah, they kind of set the trend. But again, a lot of it was just that we didn't have the space given to us to host weekly nights. And so for me, you know, my first weekly night was at Blue Wave. And, you know, that was a couple years out of college, and I ended up hosting Saturdays there for 8 years.
Wow. So when you're doing something for that long, with that longevity, you know, what are some of the things that you noticed over time that changed, and what were the positives of that and the negatives of kind of that time and that era in nightlife in Boston?
I mean, the positives were that we finally had a space that felt like it was ours, right? Shortly after Saturdays, Old School Friday started. So it was like literally every weekend at Blue Wave was for us. And it was literally a destination. There was nothing around Blue Wave. The only other bar at that time was like Lucky's, and I was like,
yes, that's right, up the
block
street
down,
yeah.
and you know, they weren't
different vibe
completely. And so it was just, I mean, the food was good, the entertainment was good. I mean, I was always big about the music. That was the DJs that were playing in the space. We did some live music. I worked with a lot of DJs, a lot of different promoters. There were other nights that took place there eventually, like Poetic Escape, a spoken word night. Pam did a Latin night for a little bit. So, like, it created other opportunities in the space. But, you know, as time went on, you know, other places started to open their doors to, you know, promoters, I guess you could say, or black promoters. But Blue Wave was always like home at that time. You know, like, people felt comfortable going there. Even people traveling, visiting Boston ended up stopping in at Blue Wave.
Yeah, and you talked about that kind of that whole idea of that there weren't a lot of those spaces, and that it seems like the ownership opportunities have changed, and that kind of leads you into what you're doing now, which is what you're at Hugh, and the opportunity to own your own space. Was that time at Blue Wave, was that kind of the driver or the foundation of you kind of having the vision of having your own spot?
It was definitely the foundation. You know, during that time, I was promoting full time, and so when they became short-staffed, I learned how to bartend. I served. Eventually, I became the bar manager there. You probably don't remember that, see me behind the bar. But I did that for some time.
Yeah, actually, I do remember. Because I was like, what's Rob doing back there?
Yeah. You know, I was doing inventory. I was placing the orders. So I really learned the business back then. Okay. And, you know, Sean and Eddie, the owners at the time, you know, gave me an opportunity to really learn the back end of the business. And so it definitely set the foundation for where I am today.
So when you were doing those things, were you doing it with the idea of eventually I have my own spot, or was it just like, I'm in the moment, I'm kind of moving and grooving, let's figure it out?
Well, my goal was actually to become one of the partners at Blue Wave at the time.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was literally on the verge of happening, and then it ended up selling.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then when that happens, and I also know that you had, you know, your connection, because you were one of the brand, I don't even want to say brand ambassador, because that makes it seem you were more than that. What was your actual title when you were with Hennessy?
Key account manager initially, but that position also evolved. So that job opportunity came about at Blue Wave. Okay. So one of the relationships I built was with Martinetti, and Hennessy was a brand that they supported. They sold, essentially. And so when the job opportunity came to the market, you know, they referred me. I was like, oh, Rob's the perfect guy for this position. Okay. My guy Julian was the, I want to say, business development. I forget his title exactly, but he was the guy that was advocating for me. And so I ended up getting a call for an interview, which by the way, I tanked the first interview.
But you got the job. So
eventually
right?
I got the job. They ended up calling me back like a month or two later, like, all right, we're going to bring you to New York. I missed that flight.
Wait, what?
I missed the flight, but luckily there was another one leaving on another airline shortly after. I'm running from like gate A to gate C, and I end up like maybe 10 minutes late.
Wow.
Luckily, one of the interviewers was also late, so it worked out just fine. And then, but yeah, I ended up getting the job, and so
you were with them for how long?
9 years.
You were with them for 9 years. So you were doing Blue Wave, you were doing Hennessy simultaneously, and running your own promotion company where you were at multiple spots, not just at Blue Wave, you were at other spots as well.
Yeah, so Blue Wave ended, and then I moved on to doing one-offs in different places. The referral came after Blue Wave because I had already established the relationship during the Blue Wave era. And so then, I got the job. I forget what year it was now. 2015, I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I, you know, it's funny because I almost feel like I remember that because I felt like there was a change in the energy around it. Because of who you were, I felt like I saw Hennessy everywhere.
But that was the role, right? It was to increase visibility, look for opportunities for partnerships or sponsorship, just being anywhere culture related, like having Hennessy be a part of those moments and being in all the nightlife spaces that, build the brand.
Well, mission accomplished because I distinctly remember, and I think everybody probably has an association. I'm sure people still associate you and call you up and want to connect with Hennessy.
Or Rob Hennessy.
Yeah,
for the longest.
You're in everybody's phone as that. You're in everybody's
people
phone.
People are now starting to change it to Hugh or putting a slash and then.
Or the new people are saying Hugh.
Yeah,
Everybody old school is saying Hennessy still.
Some still have Blue Wave Rob in their phone.
Wow, those are the real old school people. So when you as you're doing the Hennessy thing, I would imagine, again, you're in the mix, you're in spaces where you're building relationships with owners and you're seeing it. You talked about the difficulty and how there wasn't that much ownership in terms of black ownership in terms of nightlife spaces. Was that one of the reasons why you kind of jumped into it and said, like, hey, let's take a shot at this Hugh thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the biggest reasons why I never left Boston, because I had a ton of opportunities to leave, was that I wanted to be an impact of change in Boston that I wanted to see. Like, whatever that meant, whether it was continuing to curate events and provide access to spaces that we didn't have access to before, or to now having a space that I own and curate and welcome people to.
So tell us the Hugh story, because I know it's not just you. I know there's multiple people that are at the table. Like, you're the person who everybody has come to complain to. but there's other people involved in it as well. And I know that it wasn't. I also know that it wasn't an overnight thing either. No. It wasn't just like it just popped up and you jumped on it. Kind of how did it get started, and how did you get to where you're at now?
Yeah. So the pandemic hit. Everything shuts down. I get furloughed from Hennessy. Like, obviously, I'm not in the space. I'm not activating anymore. And I was like, all right, I'm not going to come out of this doing the same thing I was doing before. So one of the first things I did, like maybe midway or towards, like when we started to hear things about things opening back up, one, I called Real P. And I was like, hey, I love what you're doing with Silk. Every time I've been, I've had a great time. I would love to work with you in helping build this brand and grow the party, the experience, and move it from just, because previously it was just in the W, right? 150, 200 capacity. My goal was always big nightlife. Like, essentially, when I had that conversation with him, that's what I had in mind. But I was like, all right, we're gonna take steps to get there.
So even then, you just said, we're gonna turn this into one of the biggest parties in the city, and if not it is definitely the biggest, and I will say signature. I'm sorry, anybody else that gets upset about that. It is the biggest and most signature R&B party in the city right now, and I would even go further and say it's probably one of the biggest party that happens on a continual basis in the city.
Yeah. I mean, that was always the goal. So, the first event coming out of the pandemic, we hosted at La Fabrica. We did a few months there, and it sold out every time. It was like, all right, we got to get to the next step already.
Had a good time.
It quickly outgrew the space, and then I had forged a relationship with Big Night through my work at Hennessy. I had all of their spaces were on my account list.
Okay.
So I hosted dinners at Empire, Mystique. I hosted tables at the Grand, Red Lantern when I was around, Memoir, Big Night Live. So when I brought the opportunity. I was like, hey, like I really want to host this event here. It's like, all right, we'll give you a shot. And on a rainy, cold Thursday night in March of, what was that, 2022 maybe?
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, about 1,500 people came out.
Yeah. Now, was there any trepidation when you were having those initial conversations with them, either on your side or their side? Because one of the I don't want to say misnomer, because that's more like one of the prevailing myths is about black nightlife. And kind of there's the stigma that sometimes comes along with it. And I know I feel more comfortable. I feel as comfortable at your party as I would at my own house. You know what I mean? So I know that there is it's an intentionality. And I also think that for you, the thing that's interesting is that you have folks from all over the city. So kind of what you were saying about what you saw in that room when you first went out and like we're trying to recreate it. Like every time I go to an event that you've done, it feels like what you're describing. So when I hear you say that's what sparked it, I feel it in every time I've gone in it. Absolutely. Was there any type of trepidation either on the Big Night Live side or on your side about, going into a space that big, bringing an audience to fill that in, even doing a solely or R&B focused night when it's top 40 in hip hop at every other space in the city? Right.
Well, that's what makes it unique. I mean, our motto or slogan, whatever you want to call it, it's all R&B, all love, all night. And it's like, that's what sold them on the idea, to be honest. If it was another hip hop night, I probably wouldn't have got the green light, to be quite frank with you. But we literally like, it's all R&B all night. They're like, you sure it's an R&B night? I'm like, yes, I'm not trying to sell you on this so I could get my foot in the door and then switch the script once I'm inside. Like, it's literally all R&B. And they were like, we trust you, let's do it, because I had been very supportive of Big Night leading to that. Like with Hennessy, even during the pandemic when things started to slowly reopen, you weren't seeing, obviously it wasn't a lot of customers, but Hennessy was very intentional about supporting, all of the accounts that were carrying the brands leading, prior to. And so that relationship was like, even now, like even more so now, anytime I go to any Big Night establishment, it's like red carpet treatment. And it's great, I consider them family. They look at me as family. I mean, I know it was based on business, but now it's, it's just a mutual respect.
Yeah, but let's take a couple steps back, because you talked about reaching out to Real P, and I feel like he is another person similar to you that has curated and created a community of his own. And like the idea of when I first heard that you were getting involved with Silk, because I know Silk existed and you were getting involved with it and part of the moving over to La Fabrica, I was like, yeah, that makes real, like as somebody who understands the players in the scene, I was like, that makes perfect sense. What was it about Real P that made you want to reach out to him and get involved? And what was it that he brought to the table that you recognized that you wanted to get close, connected?
Well, P and I go back to the Blue Wave days. Like I had him as one of my DJs back then. So we have known each other for years prior to me reaching out to him about Silk. From Blue Wave to One Offs to Bijou on Saturday nights. He was one of my resident DJs. At least monthly. So we had a good relationship already, so it wasn't like a call out of the blue.
Okay.
But we both see what we were doing individually, so like working together, it just made sense. It was just like, Yeah,
and there was a synergy that just automatically. I feel like it almost felt like once you did that, it clicked and went to another level.
Absolutely.
Like it was like, oh snap! Like it was like, oh, this is about to be the. Yeah. And I remember that first. I remember that first one at Big Night Live. That was one of I had a great time.
Yeah, it still gives me goosebumps to think about
listen, it. Amani wrote a song because of that. Like it's all that. That was a great night.
Listen, I still have like raw footage of like just panning the room and showing. Anytime like people ask about Boston, like, look. They're like, this isn't Boston.
Yes, I remember that. And I'm going to tell you where you took the shot on that long wall that shoots towards the door. Yeah. And you started from the back and went all the way up to the stage.
Exactly.
Yes. Because I use that for the same reason. Like, do they say there's no black people in Boston?
It's possible.
Here's where they're at.
And literally incident free.
Yeah, I listen, because everybody's having a good time.
Yeah, it's R&B music. Like, you got to be a real, like...
Something got to be wrong with you when you came in the door. Like, you got to be in a bad mood, bad energy before you came in the door for there to be a problem
to
in there.
Mess up R&B night.
Yeah, like, what is wrong? We're having a good time. Everybody's singing at the top of their lungs.
Yeah.
Listen, and then they messed up and they added pizza to the menu. I'm chilling. I'm over. It's the greatest thing in the world. Why am I going anywhere else?
So yeah, back to your question about Hugh. So one, that call was made. Mm-hmm. So that was, kind of a handshake deal over the phone. Like, all right, we're gonna move forward together. But then secondly was like, for long enough, I had made a lot of other places a lot of money. Curating events, promoting, hosting brunches, fashion shows. You name it, I've done it. Anything entertainment related in Boston, I've had my share at some point. From
concerts to after parties to poetry readings, comedy shows, everything.
Yeah. So I was like, it's time that I own something, or at least be a part owner of something. And, one of the first people I brought the idea to was my partner, Nick Saber. So I met Nick at the gym that I used to go to. It was a CrossFit gym, and he was the owner there. And then one of the coaches introduced us, and we hung out. We went to dinner one time, and then we went to the Grand. It was like, I ended up doing like a Hennessy activation. And then we started hanging out a lot more, and he started to get to know players in the nightlife scene, and just our relationship got closer over time. And then during the pandemic, he has like his gym is like, his garage is fully built out for a gym, like weights, treadmill, everything. And so we worked out together pretty much the whole pandemic. I probably got in the best shape of my life during that time. And we would just talk about different ideas.
I feel like most people would either one way or the other. Either they got in tip-top, like, high-performance athlete shape, or they just went to hell.
Yeah, because, being in nightlife and then, working for Hennessy, I literally was out 3 to 4 times a week, socializing, drinking, partying. And so this was, like, finally a time I got to, like, reset.
Wow.
And I didn't drink the whole pandemic.
I never really thought about that because by virtue of that job, you're especially because you're working with one of the brands, you're constantly,
consuming.
And even if you're drinking half a drink a night,
yeah,
you know what I mean, that still takes a toll on your body of like on such a consistent basis.
Right.
I mean, it sounds like that may have been even a part of it too. Like, okay, I need to make this shift for my health as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, even now, like I'm 45 years old now, and I think I'm still 30 at times. Like, I just don't recover the same, and so I've definitely taken,
there's more water.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot more water.
Smart move.
And I stay active. I walk a mile a day with my dogs every morning. I go to the gym 5 times a week. So, it's balance. And I try to get as much sleep as I can. That I need improvement on.
I was going to say, how can you be running a nightlife and getting sleep, and then you're a husband and a father, you got a whole family going on over there, and now I know you got dogs. Yeah. So you know what I'm saying? Where do you get some chance to get some rest?
Yeah, I probably, on the nights that we're not open, I probably get about 7 hours of sleep. But then the nights that we are open, maybe 4 or 5.
But even on the nights that you're open or you're not open, I know you're going someplace else to somebody else's spot.
No, I've learned to not do that as much anymore unless it's like, a concert or like maybe a Celtics game, but those things generally end early enough for me to still get to bed at like a decent time.
Okay, good.
But yeah, I'm not really like on the social scene as much as I used to be.
Because I could imagine that there's a lot of people who are in that industry, the toll, and probably why you probably see a lot of turnover in that is that wearing down on your body on a regular basis.
It's rigorous, and it's not just physical; it's mental. Like, it's not like just because I'm not at work physically, I'm not working. Like, I wake up, first thing I do is I'm looking at my emails. Like, even though I may not reply right away, I'll look at it. It's just by default, like I'm just programmed that way to see, like, all right, what do I need to get to, and then looking at my schedule for the day, and then I go through my routine of walking the dogs, going to the gym, and then my day usually starts around like 9:30, 10, unless there's like an event or something I need to get to, like a a breakfast thing or some of these 8 or 9 o'clock starts. I'm like, oh my God, they're killing me right now. Like, who scheduled this?
He's like, what demon scheduled this at 9 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah. So again, go back. So Nick's brother was working for a realtor who owned a bunch of properties in the Boylston Back Bay area, Boylston and Newberry Street. So one of the first places we looked at was a poorhouse.
Oh, yeah. Before they switch it to the bank, right?
No, the poorhouse is now...
No, I'm sorry. I'm getting that confused with the other spot. Up the street. I know
at the beginning of the... Yes. Or the end of Boston. I don't know. One or the other. That deal didn't end up panning out. Then we looked at another space, and the problem was we didn't have the experience of ownership before, right? It's like, if you're a landlord, why am I taking this risk?
Chance on you.
Yeah, exactly. So couple no's essentially, and then randomly I get a call about another opportunity, and it's like, hey, I'm looking at this space. We're looking for some investors. Do you think Nick might be interested? I was like, all right, I'll set a meet. So Nick and his brother came out. We sat down. I'm going to leave names out of this.
Okay.
So, they talk about the opportunity. We get excited. Like, this only work if we can be partners on the deal and not just investors. And they're like, all right, let's do it. So we sign a napkin. We're going to move forward. Hugh wasn't always going to be Hugh. It was like another name concept. I wasn't crazy about the name or the concept, to be
I was going to ask you, because I know that I know for you, and I would say Real P is like this as well. Y'all are almost as much about the creative vision around the party as you are about the getting bodies in the door.
Absolutely.
It is very much about the look, the feel. There's an energy that when you go into Silk, there's a feel when you would go to Over Easy or when you would go to B-Sides or any of those parties that I know that you have done in the past. So when you're sitting down to kind of come up with this concept for Hugh, what was kind of going through your mind? Did you have something in your mind automatically all along? Were you waiting to kind of be inspired by whatever space you ended up moving into? Because you were saying you had a couple no's.
Yeah.
Were you trying to let the space kind of speak to you?
This space is actually what spoke to me. Because the concepts that we had for the first two were both two different concepts. It was the first one wasn't going to be the same in the next spot. It was two different things. So we end up in the space, 90 Exeter Street, and we start talking about details, who we're going to hire for this and that. And then as the train started to move along, it was like, all right, we need to find investors for this project. And the investors that we were approaching and speaking to didn't really believe in the two guys that had brought the deal to us. So, like, we like the idea, but we don't know if these are the guys for this. So then we ended up bringing George into the fold.
Okay, so you revamped the whole team.
Yeah, so George ends up coming in, so now there's 6 of us.
Okay.
And then the original 2 are like, well, we didn't really sign up for...
6 of us.
Yeah, so they end up backing out.
Okay.
So they end up with the 4 of us.
Okay, so it brings down. Went to 6. It started off with 2.
Yeah.
No, it started off with 2.
Yeah.
Then it went to 4.
To 5.
5 with you, Nick, and his brother.
Yeah.
So that's 5.
Yeah.
Then it went to 6.
Yeah.
Then those 2 were like, now it's back to 4. Okay.
Back to 4. And then, so Hugh came from the address, actually. So it's the corner of Huntington and Exeter. So H-U-N-E.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, in my mind, Hugh also having the meaning of color comes back to this whole notion of Boston being very diverse. And I wanted the space to be welcoming to everybody who lived in Boston, not just the people who lived in Back Bay, which is where we're located. So I wanted to look and feel like Boston as a whole. Yeah,
and I think, and I will say that, having been there, I was delinquent for a while, which Rob repeatedly reminded me of. I was initially delinquent, but once I did go there, and once I've gotten to the space, I think that your mission definitely has been accomplished, because when I go in, I see the Boston that I know. So you talk about growing up in Dorchester like I did, and, most people don't know that Dorchester is the most diverse section of the city.
It is.
Like, literally, there's, all facets of every population that's in the city of Boston is in Dorchester. So growing up in that environment and seeing all the different people, for me, it was almost kind of a default to kind of look for those things when I went to other places.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, I want to be places and feel comfortable, but also part of that comfort is seeing folks from everywhere. And I feel like I could just as easily see cats from around the way that I grew up with that be in Hugh, along with somebody who just came from City Hall who's grabbing a drink after work. So,
Right. And that's exactly what you see. And then, beyond growing up in Dorchester, I went to Boston Latin for high school, also a very diverse school.
Finest high school. Ladies and gentlemen, just so you know, this is not intentional that I, have invited people of this caliber, high caliber, who went to the finest institutions. That just worked out that way.
Yeah. And then obviously on to BU. So it was like, I've always seen diversity. It was never, just one color of people or one ethnicity. It was always inclusive. And so it only made sense for me to build an establishment that looked and felt like that. Yeah,
and I know that even with Hugh, some of the things you did and kind of probably were the foundational things that you did when you were at Blue Wave are in line with what you're doing at Hugh, because there has been poetry nights, there has been comedy nights, there have been all those kind of things where there's not just a diverse group of people in the room, but a diverse slate of activities.
Yeah, I mean, Hugh's become a cultural hub in essence. I mean, from, the foundations are obviously cuisine, community, culture, and connectivity. And all those things are what drive the business. And so providing opportunities for up-and-coming artists, or, providing a space for poets to perform, multiple DJs. As I mentioned earlier, I book 16 to 20 DJs every month. Besides, the entertainment piece, I've done panels and networking events. So the space is there, and why not? Why not do all of those different things and welcome different people into the space?
Yeah, and I think, it's interesting hearing you talk about the journey of it with you going up and down with partners and all those things. How difficult is it when we talk about getting something like Hugh to come together? Like, you talked about the money part of it, but just in general, because we've had a lot of conversations, and we're having this conversation today after the liquor license bill is passed here in the state of Massachusetts that'll afford more liquor licenses in the city of Boston. How difficult a journey was that piece of it, like when it comes to the ownership part?
Yeah, it's funny because even having the money isn't always enough because, as I mentioned, even having the funding, we weren't given the opportunities because of lack of experience. So
a perceived lack of experience.
Exactly, right? I mean, I know how to fill a room, right? But that doesn't mean I know how to operate a restaurant.
Yeah, but you were doing that at Blue Wave.
Yeah, but it was like, 10 plus years ago. It was for a short period of time. It wasn't like, someone who's been in the space for, 5 to 10 years or, perceived to have had the experience because of that. So in addition to having funding or finding funding, you'd want to align with a partner with someone who does have the experience because it's not easy. We didn't open until 6 months after our projected time of opening. And for that 6 months, we're carrying rent, we're carrying salaries, we're carrying product that we thought we're going to be moving. So it's like, these are things that, you don't always prepare for because you don't know that you need to prepare for that. And then there's not like a handbook either. Even the process of getting the permitting and licensing, it's not like, here's a manual, follow these steps, and you're good. A lot of it is just figuring out as you go.
Wow. So, I mean, but I know that our current city administration, in terms of the mayor's office and stuff, has been very helpful, or they've been leaning into the whole idea of supporting small businesses. Have you felt kind of the effects of that new era? Because we talked about Boston being in a new space, and I feel like part of that is coming from the top down in many ways. Have you kind of seen that with the work you've been doing?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I feel like the help kind of came after I had already gone through all the things that they're providing the resources for now, or at least I wasn't aware of them. I think one of the great things about this new administration is like just access to information. Like, there's so many resources that are being shared through social media, on their website. People are talking about it. There are a lot of grants that have come out recently, like the Space Grant, the Refresh Grant. So those weren't offered during the time that I had started. but they are now, which is great. And even in terms of relationships with the city and state officials, everybody's been very helpful and supportive of you.
I think, but it's interesting because I think as a business owner, those are the little pieces that kind of get you over the hump, and it gets you over the hump in terms of your long-term viability. Because I think that, in the past, I don't necessarily think that we had that open door policy in terms of city government and people who are willing to be at the table or to help you be successful. Like if you weren't already kind of in the know,
right,
or somebody who was in their circle or whatever, in a particular circle, you might not have gotten that. And I feel like we're at a time where I'm seeing more people who are kind of capitalizing on this new era of openness.
Absolutely. And relationships, just like anywhere else, are key. Like, your network is important in any facet of life, especially when you own a business. Like, unfortunately, I don't know anyone that works for the liquor board, which I'm intentionally trying to find someone just so they know who I am. Like, hey, I'm Robert Eugene, I'm at Hugh and Back Bay. So, because it makes a difference. Like, having a face to a name goes a long way.
It does, and it definitely does here in Boston.
For sure.
I know. So you got in Hugh, you got it up and running. It's moving along. It's running smooth.
It's getting there.
It's running.
Okay, so we finally get the doors open.
Yes,
and then there's that learning curve. Like I said, there's certain things you just don't know, and you learn the hard way. A lot of transition in terms of changes in management and staffing. It's almost like a revolving door, unfortunately. I think it's the nature of the business.
I was just about to say, that's the nature of the industry right now. It's the nature of business, period, but I also think it's particularly the nature of that industry, that there's a lot of turnover. Yeah,
and then, just recently, I became the majority owner at Hugh, actually. I ended up buying George out. Nothing bad. It was just like it
was just time, and if he wanted the opportunity.
Yeah, and he's got other things going on, and I thought it was important that I become the majority owner of the establishment.
Okay.
Not just look like a black-owned business, but actually be
that. Okay. So, and well, talk to me about that, because I think this kind of ties back into the event curation as well. Like, what was the importance of kind of creating those spaces where people could thrive as a whole, but also particularly Black people could thrive? Because I know that also is not. It's a piece of what you're doing as well. Like it's not necessarily like, oh, this is a place where only these people can come, but it's really a situation where it's like, okay, in addition to taking care of everybody, I want to take care of my community as well.
I grew up here and I've seen it, and I know what it feels like to not have opportunity to be great. It's like a lot of these starting off of these young artists, and when I say artists, all kinds of artists, whether musicians, actual artists. We've done galleries in the space before. People just need an opportunity and not have the space. So again, why not give them an opportunity to do so?
That's incredible. Yeah. I love it. I love that that's where you're headed with this.
And it's just like, for Boston to change, that's what has to happen. It's like you have to do things differently and be the change if you can. If you can affect the change, then do the things that you have in your power to do that.
Now, I should have asked this earlier. What was the thought process when you came home to your family and your parents, and you're telling them like, "Yeah, I'm a nightclub promoter"? Because I don't know how it was over at your house.
Yeah,
but anything entertainment related. If you were not a doctor or an engineer, or if you were not a nurse, some good solid, we're gonna know you're gonna have a job forever type job.
It's so funny. Yeah, it's funny. I mentioned this the other day. I forget. I think it was on a panel. But yeah, my parents are from Haiti.
No, you was not.
So
and that's me knowing and having Haitian friends and knowing that if I got it bad in my Black household, you was getting real bad.
They didn't understand. Me having an entertainment company and promoting full time was not it.
It's when are you gonna get a real job?
Exactly. And then even at like the peak when I was making the most money I ever had, like even prior to working full-time jobs, my dad was still offering me money. Like, you okay? Here, get some gas on me. Like, Dad, I'm doing very well.
I'm good.
But
that's hilarious.
Yeah, it's funny now having like a brick and mortar in a place I can bring him to and sit down and, they can eat it and have a meal. That's like, okay, like.
So I know he's beaming from ear, he's smiling from ear to ear. It's like, my son owns it.
And then, seeing like the features in magazines and shows and stuff.
And seeing you on TV and stuff like that. Now he's like, okay, this is a real job. That's hilarious. I could just imagine, because like I said, I've been in that situation where and I know that it comes from a place of love.
Of course.
Because they're obviously, they like, especially, and then particularly in your situation, if your family is coming from someplace else, or you know what I mean, or you're coming from a line of immigrant folks or whatever, that there's the whole idea of like, okay, we're making this incredible sacrifice to be in this place. I did not come for here and go through all that for you to be here now flying. No.
Yeah, it took some time for them to understand, but
now they get it.
Now they get it.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and it's funny because that's all they do is talk about, friends and strangers even.
So now they bragging on you.
Yeah, of course. They're my biggest fans.
And that's the beautiful full circle moment, because I know for a while they were looking at you like, what is this? You coming in at 3:00 in the morning and all Texas? Oh no, I know they were not hearing it.
I mean, honestly, like I couldn't have gotten here without my wife. I mean, God bless her patience and understanding and her willingness to come along for the ride and sometimes take the wheel at, when needed. A big part of Hugh getting to where it is now is because of her. I mean, she's my GM.
I would say I know that she jumped into the game with you as well, because I know initially you were doing, but then she jumped into it, and she was. When I come in, I see her, side by side, right there with you.
Yeah. I mean, she's the glue there. I mean, she's HR, she's handling scheduling, she's placing orders, she's on top of everything. I mean, and it allows me to do all the other things that are needed for the business, the social aspect, the outreach, and, just letting me be who I've always been in order to like help build the business. So
now that you kind of have this as a foundational piece, I know we were joking about like it's not all the way where you wanted to be. I know knowing you have a vision for the future, like you always do. What are the things that you're thinking of? Are you thinking about? Is there going to be another space, another concept? And not necessarily you got to give us the idea, but like another concept, or do you want to continue building like a restaurant group, or like what is your vision now that you kind of have had your taste of what's going on with you, or are you just happy with Hugh? Like, I'm
never satisfied. No,
okay,
that's not my personality. There's always room for growth.
Okay.
So we recently acquired Blue Nile in Jamaica Plain.
Okay.
Ethiopian restaurant on Center Street.
Yes. I know exactly where it is.
My father-in-law is running that business.
Okay, beautiful.
Yeah, so my wife and I are the partners on that, the ownership there, and then working on a juice bar concept. Hopefully sometime in January it'll open. And then obviously with the liquor licenses that are being released, I definitely want to take advantage of that opportunity. And it probably won't be another Hugh, but just like a restaurant. Again, concept kind of depends on the space and what that'll feel like.
Yeah, see, that's interesting. So as you're moving and you have this vision of kind of these other spaces, not necessarily specifically like what those spaces are like, but what is the driver for you to continue to build those spaces? Is it the creativity involved? Is it the need in the community? Like, what is it? The things?
It's all of the above. I mean, I am a very creative person. I think there is a need that we still own less than 7% of the liquor licenses, and actually, I think it's only 2%.
Wow.
In Boston. And so equity is needed. I mean, that's really the only way you can really affect change is to have ownership. Otherwise you're still at the disposal or whatever of the people that own the spaces and what they allow you to do and what you can't do. So
yeah, and I that kind of the conversation that Representative Worwell was having in terms of the licensing, and I know Senator Miranda was saying the same thing, was that these could be drivers for kind of revitalizing places like Blue Hill Ave, where, well before either you or I were around, there was a time when you could go up and down Blue Hill Ave and there was restaurants and places to go party and all those things like right there in the neighborhood.
Yeah. See, for me, I'm more of a disruptor, so I prefer to be in the places that we're not.
Okay.
So being the only black-owned establishment, at least as far as I know, in Back Bay, is impactful. We don't have any equity in the casino, which is obviously outside of Boston, but I'm just naming airport, Actually, I think maybe the Dunkin' Donuts, it might be owned by a brother, but it's not.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
But
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not like a full-service restaurant. You know, seeing Nia in the Seaport,
It's incredible.
kudos, you know.
Salute to Nia.
Exactly. But then it's like, you look at like the North End or near the Garden, we don't have anything there. You know, so those are the things that excite me. Those are the opportunities. Like, we belong to be in those spaces too. Like, I'm grateful for the opportunity for those licenses going into the neighborhoods, because I know that in the past, some of those neighborhood licenses ended up outside of the neighborhoods they were supposed to go to.
Exactly.
But at the same time, I don't like the idea of being limited to those spaces. I mean, that's just my take.
But I think that you can do both. I think it's possible to do both.
Exactly.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be both from one person.
Right.
It could be both from like you're having this vision of being a disruptor in these spaces, but then someone else may be like, I can be a disruptor in our neighborhoods by bringing the quality of a hue into this area. So like there's different approaches.
Yeah, it's all good trouble.
Yeah, exactly. See, this man he's on top of things. So I love it. So, you know, as we wrap up, I guess my one of the questions that jumps out at me is going back and getting back to Silk. You know, you've had it since, what was it, 2021 that you've been in Big Night Live?
The Silk was 22, I believe.
Oh, okay. So I'm sorry, 2022. So you've been in Big Night Live. You've been in large spaces like that. What is the next iteration of that? Because I feel like that brand is something that you can be building just as much.
Yeah. Our intention for Silk now is to be in spaces that normally we're not. So we just did Tall Ship for the first time, and I think
incredible.
Yeah, it was.
You've done the Embrace Boston block party. You did the first Silk Outside was done out there.
Yeah, we have some museum events coming up.
Okay,
which will be dope. Which we're excited about. We're looking at some things outside of Boston. Some familiar spaces, just we haven't been there yet.
Beautiful.
I don't want to put too much out there.
No, I understand. You want anybody to swoop in and try, you know, because listen, that is an old school like nightclub thing. I feel like, and you remember this, it would be somebody would get like figure out a spot and they get it on a Friday night. And they'd be rocking on a Friday night, and everybody's having a good time. And then here somebody comes along, hey, man, I can do that on Saturday. And then they try to replicate in your same spot. The owner's being greedy, so he sees what's going on Fridays. Yes.
Yes, you know all too well. So, you know, the thing now is that I feel like we built such a brand that even if you wanted to, you probably still wouldn't be able to get into those spaces because people know the brand now and all the different spaces that we've been. That Silk is like solidified, and you know, because of the brand, we're able to get into some of those other spaces.
Yeah, I feel like you're not just doing a party. You're bringing an energy and a vibe in the community, and I think the people who are in ownership spaces recognize that and understand that.
Yeah,
and like the fact that you've had like long track records in the places that you've been. And they've been positive track records, I think just makes people feel super excited about inviting you in.
Yeah, so we're excited to just do some more non-traditional spaces for the event.
Okay. I'm looking forward to it. So as we wrap up, we have a thing on the show where we ask people, who should we have on the show next? I feel like the best person to find other good troublemakers is the good troublemakers themselves. So who should we have on the show and have a conversation with?
I would say my brother Pro Black.
Okay.
I say that because he is literally changing the way you see Boston. Like, you drive by, you see a mural that wasn't there before. You see a basketball court that was dead and now has been brought to life. This is something powerful about that. I'm not an artist, but I'm truly inspired every time I see another piece of his work.
Oh, I think that is absolutely a good person to pick, and I agree with you. There are times when I've been where I will be going on my way home and I'll stop and pull over and look at the mural and just kind of take it in because, like, I don't think people really understand how important those markers are to, imagine the kids that are growing up in that neighborhood and seeing like a beautiful picture of themselves on a regular basis and how that kind of burns into your mind on a long-term basis. Like, in Embrace, we're very much into the idea of symbols and monuments. So the idea of having a conversation with Black is something we can.
I'm fortunate enough to see a piece of his work every day at Hugh. He did the mural of all the jazz musicians that have performed in the space.
Oh,
in the
man.
50s.
So did you see? Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. See, now that's all more reason for everybody who's listening to us to get yourselves together. If you're watching and you're listening, get yourself together, head on down to Hugh and have an incredible experience. The food is good. The drinks are great. The atmosphere is good. It's a good vibe. As long as you're in a good mood, and even if you aren't in a good mood, if you're in an okay mood, they'll improve your mood.
Yeah.
Because either the drinks or the food are going to make you happy, and the people too. So make sure you head on down. Rob, thank you so much for joining us today.
Me. I appreciate you.
Dog, listen, I could talk to you for a million years, and we may have to start doing a whole nother set of episodes where I start getting, this is the nice episode for all the folks, and then we can start to get into the what happened at that night party.
Oh man.
what happened that day.
Yeah.
Kind of episode.
That might have to move to Netflix.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. That definitely will be Patreon if we do that. So, folks, thank you so much for joining us again for Good Trouble, and make sure that you're out there causing some good trouble yourself. See you soon.